For many people, being confronted with a terminal illness brings them face to face with spiritual issues. This video will examine the place of spirituality in palliative care. Palliative care is unlike many other areas of nursing. Generally, technological interventions are only used to provide comfort as the nurse attends to the needs of the client. In a sense, palliative care is like a tender and compassionate cloak placed over the dying person and his family. What is it about the nature of death and dying that stimulates a person's sense of spirituality?
Think of it as balance, you know, and one of the illustrations I sometimes use is a mobile, you know, where you have 4 or 5 things hanging, and, you know, generally we think the whole person is well when everything is in balance. I try to suggest that spirituality is probably balance itself. It's not just something that hangs in counterbalance to others, that it is the potential, the ability to move things around. It's the ability really to be able to adapt, to draw on our inner resources. And so when we're faced with something as significant and as traumatic as death for ourselves or for a loved one, then we go into a lot of adjustments that have to be made.
When death is approaching, in a palliative care setting, I've seen such a transition compared probably to being involved in other areas of my nursing before I started there, in that it's always a unique individual experience. There's something profound about what's happening that they compare it oftentimes to birth and death. There's no control over each. We may know an expected date when a baby's being born, that usually not the day it's born. And even when we know we have a terminal illness, we don't know the exact time we'll leave this life. When the process is happening, I think spirituality comes to the forefront more than ever.
From a developmental view, dying is perhaps the most complex phase of life, where new perspectives and new tasks about life emerge. Spiritual searching occurs as clients and their families grapple with the bigger questions pertaining to life and death. Robert was a young man in his mid-20s when he was diagnosed with cancer in 1995. He had recently graduated from the Coast Guard College in the top of his class. In January of 1996, he was admitted to a palliative care unit where he died a few weeks later. Lorianne, one of the nurses who attended to Robert, and Robert's parents, Owen and Priscilla, reflect on the time Robert spent in palliative care.
Well, after Robert was diagnosed as being terminal, and when he was admitted to palliative care, the questions, of course, that arose in his mind is, well, why me? But then as he progressed through these various stages, of course, but why not me? But, you know, he questioned a lot of things. He was a very good person, a caring person. And so therefore, this really was an issue that he had to grapple with spiritually.
One of the questions you often hear from patients or families is, why me or why them? Why has it happened to me? And what have I done to deserve this? And usually it's a question to why God? Why me? Why now? I see that and hear that. And oftentimes we hear it too, it shouldn't be happening to her, or this shouldn't be happening now. And trying to find some meaning and some reasoning for what happens. And you hear it sometimes with much younger people maybe than the older generation as well. But it's unique for different people.
Robert really questioned what is the meaning and the purpose to all this in my life, because he was going through a lot of struggles that time. Most of his friends were getting married, having children and that, and he was dying. And, you know, couldn't quite understand why, because he still have a full life ahead of him.
He wasn't married. He wondered how his life would be remembered. Would there be a memory of him because he didn't have children? He wondered what heaven would be like. And he was always a very busy young man. And one day he said to me, Lorianne, do you think there'll be something for me to do in heaven? And my response was, do you think it would be your heaven if there wasn't something for you to do? And of course he looked at me and he said, that's a wise answer in terms of knowing not for sure. None of us know exactly what it's about. And he did a lot of searching, a lot of other issues as well too, to connect with his family.